Now we're going to let our player inventory restore items across scenes. So we're going to let our game manager do that. We'll let it keep track of our item prefabs and then spawn the correct object as needed. Here in our game manager, if we're not able to find the item in the scene and just bind up to it, we'll just ask the game manager to create an instance of it and give us that. So we'll say else, we'll add some braces, and here I'm going to say item equals, and we already have item declared up here, so we need to not redeclare it, just use item equals, and here we'll say game manager dot instance dot get item, and then give it our item name. And then finally, we'll pick up that item, assuming that the item exists. So let's first make sure that our item is not equal to null, because it is possible that maybe we tried to persist and reload some item that no longer exists, and we don't want to try calling pickup on that and then bugging stuff out even worse. All right, let's call get item and generate a method. And inside of our get item, we'll make sure to add some logging for that too. So we want to be able to get any item in our get item method, or any item that we have as a prefab. And to do that, we're just going to start by creating a simple list of all of our item prefabs. So you can make something like a public list of item and call this underscore all items. And then we could do something like var, or let's say string prefab name equals item name dot substring. And right now I'm using a naming convention. Let's just go take a real quick look at it. We're using one of the default naming patterns. We're just doing an underscore after the prefab name and then a number for the instance. So before we get into anything more complicated, I'll just use that as well. We'll just kind of substring it, and we'll take everything before the underscore and use that as the prefab name. So say the prefab name is the substring from 0, which is the start index. So we'll start at the beginning of the item name, and we're going to go all the way up to the index of the first underscore. So to get that, we do item name dot index of, and then pass in our underscore. So this is going to give us a string that's from the beginning to the first underscore, and put that as our prefab name. Then I'll say var prefab, not var prefab equals all items. And we'll just do a first or default, which is just going to find the object, or null if it doesn't exist. And we'll create a lambda statement here where we'll check the name of the object against the prefab name. Now, if we don't get back a prefab, this is probably where we want to do that error logging. So we'll say if prefab is equal to null, then we'll do a debug.log error that we were unable, let's put a $sign in here, unable to find item, and then we'll give it the item name. And our closing quotes and semicolon, then we'll just return null. And at the bottom, assuming we got a prefab, we're going not want to return that prefab. We want to instantiate a new instance of it. So we'll say return instantiate. Actually, let's create a new game object here. So say var new instance equals instantiate, and we're going to instantiate the prefab. And then I want to make sure that we've set that name. So new instance.name equal to the prefab name. There we go. Then we've got one other issue though. Let's return our new instance and then figure out, why is this a problem? Why is this giving us an error? Well, the problem is really lying with what we've got here. We have an interface right now for an object that we're starting to use more like a mono behavior. In fact, even if we comment out, let's say we commented out all of these lines and just returned null right here, we're also not going to be able to see our all items. Let's go take a look at that real quick. We'll fix it, and then we'll come back to here and finish this up. So if we go back into our project and I go look at my game manager, you see we've got the game data, we've got our all game names, but this new public field that I've added isn't showing up even though it's public. And the reason, again, is because item is an interface, and interfaces don't get serialized. They also can't be instantiated. So we're going to need to change this up a little bit. And one of the easiest things that we can do is switch this interface away from being an interface into being an abstract class. Since we know that they're all going to be mono behaviors for our items anyway, it makes it pretty easy to just create an abstract class that inherits from mono behavior. Before I go in here and rename and change things, though, I'm going to make the change inside of Unity first. first. I'm going to go find the file, go find my item, and rename it to be item. So otherwise, if I don't do this, I'm going to end up with multiple files. I might end up with an extra items interface just sitting around inside the project if I try to rename and move things around with Visual Studio. So I'll rename it, let it reload, and then reopen the script. And now we'll rename this from item to item because it's no longer going to be an interface. Oh, my rename didn't work. Well, let's change this to a class. This happens sometimes where it just does not want to rename, by the way. Let's try it again. Control R, delete. It's not going to do it. So I'll probably just manually do that. For now, though, let's delete out our 3 properties here. We'll make our use method an abstract or a public abstract void method. And we're going to make this actually an abstract class as well. We'll make this inherit from mono behavior. Look at that, it's already trying to auto complete, and I've already got my braces there. I'm going to do a quick build again and then see if we can rename this item yet. Rename to item. There we go. After doing a build and kind of completing it, the rename started working. All right, now let's do a build, find our errors. We're going to have a couple of them. Here you'll see we've got cannot convert key to item. That's because key is right now a mono behavior and an item. We just need to delete the key part or the mono behavior part so that it's an item which is already a mono behavior. And then we need to change it up here. We've got our use method. We're getting an error here saying that our key does not implement the abstract member item.use. That's just because we don't have the override keyword in here. Since we didn't have the override keyword, it was trying to overwrite or replace, and it's not exactly the same, cause some problems. So, well, causes that error especially, but also will cause our inheritance and our polymorphism to not work exactly properly. So it's deleting out those extra lines. All right, let's do a build and find the next error. We should have one for Blaster as well, because Blaster inherits from item or had item as an interface or item. We'll delete the mono behavior there and then add the override here. Save and build again. I think we've got a successful build. Now we can go into Unity and assign our couple of items. Before we do that though, let's create an item folder to put our items in underneath our prefabs. So just right click on prefabs, we'll hit create and create a new folder for items. And then we'll just move over our couple items. We don't have very many, really just our yellow key right now. We'll create a couple more in a moment. So we're gonna wanna have them in a folder, nicely organized. Let's go find our game manager and then drag our yellow key into our all items. And then the last thing we're gonna need to do in our game manager is uncomment out that code that we commented earlier. Get our new instance spawning with the prefab name. It should now compile now that we've changed that over to be a game object and not an interface. And now if we hit play, I expect that we'll be able to persist our key across multiple levels because our game manager is staying around and just spawning that up. Let's go try it out. All right, here we go. We'll run over, grab the key, switch between my 2 items. Let's see if I can make that jump. And here we are back in here with my key. Let's jump on this key or the flag again. And I've got my items. Let's go do a quick save and a reload. And everything is looking pretty good except for we've got this one error here. And if we take a look at this error, let's just go click on it and dig in. Right here, it's on player inventory.bind, line 76, being called by game manager bind by handle scene load. So we're loading into a scene, binding up our player inventory is getting an exception right here on line 75 because it's called the items is changing as we're iterating over it. Now I want to present this as a small challenge. See if you can figure out why this is giving us an exception and what the fix is. The fix is pretty simple. It really just requires a change to 1 line of code, or I guess 2 lines of code, and they're not in here. So take a look and see if you can figure out what's going on and how to fix it. And then we'll continue on afterwards and I'll show you the solution and kind of hopefully give you a good example and teach you how to track these down in the future. All right, I'm going to assume that you've either figured it out or you're ready to continue on. So what's actually happening here when we call bind, we're looping through our collection or our list of items, and then we're calling pickup on the item. So we're either calling pickup on the existing item or a new instance of the item. If we go to our pickup method, which is right above, you see that we do some stuff, all kinds of other things, nothing related to items though, until we get down right here. I've got items selected, so you can see it's kind of highlighting right there, which is a nice thing to do. Another thing to do to kind of find some of these errors, just select the loop or the collection that's causing the problem when you're getting these collection modified errors, and hit Shift F12. You can also find them there. So see that here, there's a scenario where we add them, which is this line right here on line 69, which is the only place where it's modified. So what's happening, we're looping through the items, and then we're adding items to the list that already exist in there. So realistically, we don't want this persist method to kind of default to true. We probably want this to be false and only add items to this list if they're new items, not if they're things that are being rebound to. So we're going to change this from a true to false, and I'm going to rename this variable to is new instead of persist. Now, that said, there must be some scenario where we want this to be true, right? Probably when we first pick up an item. So let's go find that use case. To do that, we'll hit Shift F12 on pickup, and then look for the spot where we call it from outside of our other code. And that looks like right now it's in key.cs. In our key method, we'll just pass in true as the other parameter so the item can be picked up. Now this does make me think though, hey, our on trigger enter for picking up an item is right here. Shouldn't that probably be up one level in our item? Should that be in our key? It's only in our key right now because the key is the only item that we have. So it probably should move up a level. Let's take this and cut it and click into item, and then we'll paste it in. Now we've got a reason for an abstract class beyond just serializing. We're also reusing our pickup logic, which probably makes a lot of sense. Let's save and go back. We'll go test this one more time. All right, and we've got no errors. We've got a key that we've picked up. Let's go over to the other level. Our key is still there. I come back and it's still here, and we've got no problems or no errors down below. Let's stop playing now and go into plastic and commit. We can now pick up of items across scenes now works, and we'll check that in.